Geocachomaniacs.
GeoGearHeads.
Welcome to episode 282 of the GeoGearHeads. I am Chris of the Northwest, along with our illustrious host, Daryl W4. We bring you one of my favorite types of episodes, the Randomize show.
Yeah, it's good to be back with another Randomize show. This is a little bit longer than we usually like to do between Randomize shows. And I think it's going to be apparent with the amount of stuff that we've collected. Ironically, a lot of it's about GPS. But before we get into that, let's introduce our guest today. Some of you might know him as Coach V. Others might know him as Coach V. Some might know him as Mr. V. And others might know him as the CZO. Welcome to the show, Rob.
What can I say? I've got a lot of names. So I just figured I'd throw all of them out there for you. But hey, good to see you guys again. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Always fun.
The title CZO sounds like you need some sort of lubrication.
Yeah. You know, like I said, all kinds of titles.
Okay. It's good to have you here. And, it's really interesting. This is one time, Rob, we're going to talk to you as a geocacher and not the CZO of Muncie.
I know, right? I'll kind of keep my hand covering my shirt up there. Just
okay.
A little
No,
bit.
that's fine. Feel free.
No, I look forward to it because that's where I started. So I'm all about all of the geolocation games. So I'm more than happy to come in and talk about whatever. It's all good.
I just learned of a new one today called geodetecting. It's a combination of geocaching and metal detecting. It's been around for a couple of years, but hasn't really taken off. But I thought it was interesting. I didn't know that that existed. If you're interested, you can go to geodetecting.com and see if there's anything near you.
Doing that right now.
You have a metal detector?
No, but that doesn't matter.
I kind of want one. That's
I'm kind of surprised it's actually a thing. I know that a couple of the metal detector companies had been pushing metal detectors for geocachers, but I didn't realize it had its own website and everything behind it.
Yeah, kind of interesting. It's what did they say? 30% geocaching, 70% metal detecting. So, you got a set of coordinates that get you to ground zero. Then you use the metal detector to find what's been hidden.
Huh, that's interesting.
Yeah, there you go.
And you're allowed to bury it, I would presume, unlike geocaching.
Right.
So I would think the land managers wouldn't like that very much.
Yeah. Yeah, this would be a little trickier to build a community of, hey, go put your own out there. Yeah, but that's interesting. Something to look at.
Yeah, I thought it was something interesting that I hadn't seen before.
Yeah.
You know what else is interesting? All of our great listeners who send us email and feedback each and every week. This week, we got a very interesting email from Jimmy Logan. He says, I enjoyed all the talk of geocaching and other geo-based games. You asked your listeners to tell you what they were doing, so I thought I'd share. First, we still grab a cache every now and again, but with my wife's health issues, big walks in the woods are our favorite part of it, have taken a hiatus. We also enjoyed state line hopping for a day and just driving in an area and seeing what caches we could find and spending the day together. That hasn't been happening either now that we have a grandson and another on the way. Congratulations to you. A few years ago, I heard of Muncie, and we drove over an hour to capture our first. It was fun enough, but soon lost the charm. Sometime later, she tells me about this Ingress thing that another EMT was telling her about. She gave me the basic info, and I knew I'd follow up. Well, I did, and we ingressed for a while, but never got into the side story, and we've yet to ingress with a group. She finally lost interest, but I've continued on. It's a handy little distraction when I'm traveling between job sites. Then came Pokemon Go. Yeah, she likes it. And it's something we can do together. We capture and hit the Pokestops together and have a good time. No pre-planning like the old days of geocaching. And when she's too tired to go on, it's just put the phone away, just like Ingress. We have not done it with a group. I will say this. Part of the fun of geocaching was the times we'd get together with our friends, and we still keep in contact with great friends we made in the hobby. We wouldn't trade that for anything. We are now ham radio license holders too. And I've made the comment that it would be nice to have all of us to have radios back in the day when we had several cars going around in a town in the middle of the night to sweep for new caches as a group. Anyway, that's ours.
Well, thanks for writing in with that, giving us an idea of what you're doing. And we did. This is really talking about the show that we did with Patient Rock about the various other storytelling type of things. And we didn't really get a whole lot of people who wrote in with their experiences with those storytelling apps, but a number of people who wanted to go out and try some of the stuff that we had talked about. And unfortunately, I don't think we've heard back from any of them yet. So hopefully we'll hear back from them in time for the next Randomize show.
There you go. I have to say, with Jimmy Logan, I have to agree that Pokemon's pretty much replaced Ingress for me. There was a group of Ingressites that I got together with, but that's kind of faded off. And I tend to spend Pokemon time with my son, which then, that makes it all the worthwhile. So
I'm the same way. I jumped in with Ingress, and then when Pokemon Go came out, then full on there. I still play that all the time. My son gets drug along with me every now and then, and they just ended their whatever it was, the rock event and all that kind of stuff earlier today, sadly. But I managed to walk and get enough candy. Then that one, I'm sticking with Pokemon Go. It's been pretty fun.
It has been. I've been surprised. I thought it would be like Ingress, where, if you're in an active group and, you see the interlopers come by and take your portals. Thank you. That was the word. As a group, we'd go out and take a back, and that was kind of fun. It's kind of like, that FTF feeling at geocaching, where you get an impromptu group together to go do something.
Yeah, and then you had the ops and stuff like that. They were fun with Ingress, but Pokemon definitely seems to be less formal than Ingress is, but definitely many, many more people doing it, many more cheaters too, and that's something that they're still working on at Niantic. And the latest thing is, if they suspect you're a cheater, rather than just banning you, they give you really poopy monsters.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you just get the really icky stuff. You don't, I shouldn't say icky, but
Basic.
Sounds like it's all like Pidgeys and Rattatas, So that's their new strategy for dealing with the spoofers and stuff like that.
Interesting. I thought they had worked around that, but
they had. But people are. Yeah, and when people are going to keep trying to game the system, no matter what that system is.
Mm-hmm.
That's true. No matter what you put in place, someone will find a way around it.
Yep.
Yeah, and then you get into the arms race, and probably right now there's more people on the side of defeating Pokemon Go than the side of preventing them from doing so.
Wow. My son's going to Europe this summer, and he's going, well, where do I have to go to get some of these region-specific Pokemon? I don't know. We'll have to find that out.
Yeah.
When are they going to get the trading built in?
Yeah.
They've been promising that for over a year.
Yeah. Since the beginning.
Yep.
So let's
move on. Let's move on to the email from R. Reagan, who asked, after the show with the Project GC, it sent him into some wondering. If geocaching.com had a catastrophe and lost their servers and the backups were bad, could the data be resurrected from Project GC plus all the GSACs out there? Just a thought experiment, but the worst case scenario is what keeps IT folks awake at night.
I agree with that last part of that. There are worst case scenarios that keep IT folks awake at night.
I don't know that any of those are really good ways to rebuild the database. And you would think that they'd have some kind of good backup that wouldn't be affected. Not necessarily up to date, but good enough that you could try to resurrect the last several logs from something else.
Yeah. And really, geocaching.com, and Rob, you can speak to this as Munzie and Wallaby. You're really an IT company.
Yeah.
And, if you don't have a disaster recovery plan in place, that's just poor planning. It really is.
Hey, Scott, did you hear that? You need to put a disaster recovery plan in place like immediately. Let's call that. While I'm gone to Geo Woodstock, you guys put together the plan. No, we
I'll send
definitely
you my consulting fee.
Yeah, do that. Send us a business card. That'd be perfect. Just shoot an email in to support@munzie.com. No problem. We'll take care of it from there. No. But you're right. If those guys don't have something in place, then I would be really surprised, because it's an important thing, and kind of like you said, Daryl, it's not going to be something that has every single thing. Just depending on when that catastrophe happens, there will be something missing, but at least the game will go on. So, yeah.
Well, I think they probably got their wake up call back in, I think it was 2007, where their data center had that
4th of July a couple of years ago.
Well, yeah, and they had the 4th of July was I thought that was like 2010 or something. That was more than a couple of years ago. Okay. But they've had a couple of big ones. But the first one that I know of was the fire in the data center.
Mm-hmm. That was over the 4th of July. That was the 4th of July weekend. Yeah,
that one was like 2007, I think. But they also had another one where something happened. I think it was like a fiber cut to the data center. So the data center was only on their backup connections.
So is it better then to put everything in the cloud so that it doesn't catch on fire? That would be the question.
Well,
right?
Technically it is in the cloud.
Right.
Well, you guys had an issue with you moved to AWS right as that tech decided to shut down everything.
Daryl,
take
stop.
off that whole thing.
Rob is leaving now.
I was looking for a hole to crawl in, but I can't see water now.
Well, It's a perfect example of 99% uptime just doesn't work well enough sometimes.
No, it really doesn't. But you're exactly right. There are plans in place for the smart companies out there, and they, you recover what you can, and then you make up the rest, and you get back to where you were.
Well, and I was that whole day going, I'm glad I don't work for Munzie today.
I was traveling.
Rob was there too.
Yeah. I was wishing that I didn't. You're right. Would have been okay. No, as long as it's not our fault. That's always a good thing. As long as there's somebody else, and you just hope that you've got the right team in place to take care of that stuff. Keep the game going.
No, as Munzie, I thought you guys handled it very well. You kept us updated on what was going on as best as you knew. I thought you guys handled it well. I'll give you that.
We tried. If nothing else, I went on Facebook Live and entertained everyone with, beating Scott and just showing that we really were trying to do stuff. And for the most part, our hands were tied. So. Mm-hmm.
Well, it's just the wrong day to switch service providers.
Oh man, if we hadn't been doing it that day, it would have been worse for us. At least we had this like, hey, everybody, we're going to be down for a little while, and then that jumped in on top. So it didn't help, but
Yeah, at least everyone was expecting some downtime that day.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Well, let's move on to some GPS news, because we did just talk about this, and there's a lot of GPS news that's accumulated since the last Randomize show. And the first bit is actually from Shriver Air Force Base.
Mm-hmm.
And again, this gets into the second space ops guys that I want to go work for.
The two SOPs.
The two SOPs. But they actually shut down 2 of the GPS satellites. Actually, just one. We're talking 2 in a little while. The 25-year-old vehicle number 27 was issued its final command for disposal on April 18th.
What command is that? Is it like,
I don't think they're going to tell us that.
Is it a Linux command? Halt all, and down it comes.
I thought it was just kill all.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
Delete
it was
C:.
disposed. It was disposed of because its navigation payload could no longer perform up to the GPS standards, according to First Lieutenant Shannon Sewell.
That doesn't sound good. That sounds like euthanasia.
Yeah.
You know, you're no longer
Essentially.
performing up to standards.
Mm-hmm. Putting the cow out to pasture.
Yeah.
That's it.
But it's impressive that it's 25 years old and was still running.
I mean, those are some serious batteries they sent up there. Can I get that for my GPS?
Yeah.
No.
Oh.
No, I don't think you'd want to carry around the solar arrays on those things either.
Bummer.
I
I mean, what household electronics do you have that still is working after 25 years?
Hey, I just got rid of my washer and dryer that were like 30 years old.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
I guess I had a water heater about that old.
Oh, my water heater wasn't working well when we bought the place, but that was 30 something years old.
I had a water heater it was from 1960. It still had the stamp.
Actually, my air conditioner is 33 years old now.
Okay. So
It
your
needs to
air
be
conditioner is
replaced.
working better than GPS satellites.
I don't know about that.
Developed by NASA. Rocket scientists can't make a satellite as good as your air conditioner.
NASA didn't. NASA launched them, I think, maybe, but NASA didn't develop them.
Well, rocket scientists did.
Yes.
There you go. Anyway,
It sounds good.
it does, doesn't it? Oh, here's some more GPS news. This one comes from GPS World. Raytheon launches WAAS, W-A-A-S payload to improve GPS accuracy for air travel. Rob, you're flying soon, right?
I am flying in 10 and a half hours. Yes.
That may not be enough. Well, I don't know. Let's find out.
Yes.
The GEO-6 satellite payload was launched into orbit May 17th for its 12-year mission to support the FAA's Wide Area Augmentation System, typically pronounced WAAS. The Raytheon-developed payload is a key element of WAAS, which offers commercial, business, and general aviation pilots more direct flight paths, greater runway capability, and precision approaches as they you know what? One of these days, I'm going to learn to talk properly. Today's not that day. Precision approaches to airports. There's just too many P's in there for me. And remote landing sites without dependence on local ground-based landing systems. So they just launched GEO-6. GEO-5 was launched last June. So they were both launched in replacement of aging satellites to enhance GPS precision.
Yeah, so I take it that these are only the 4 satellites up there because 5 and 6 replaced 2 other satellites.
Now, I didn't think wide area augmentation was a satellite. I thought that was ground-based. It's
satellite and terrestrial both.
Okay.
So I'm not sure exactly how that works. I think the satellites just cover the, and I think it's US only, but I think the satellites just cover the areas where they don't have the terrestrial. But as I recall, the satellites also talk with the terrestrial and everything syncs together through the satellites.
Well, as someone who flies really frequently, this all sounds good to me. Anything that gives more direct paths and better landing and takeoff accuracy and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I'm definitely good with that.
But did you notice that these are only 12-year missions?
Oh, you're right. For its 12-year mission.
Hey, that's more than twice as long as the Starship Enterprise.
This is true. So next is another GPS World story that just was launched right before the show, and that's the first Galileo Open Service Performance Report has been published. So the European GNSS agency, the GSA, has published the first of these quarterly performance reports because they just turned on service in December of 2016. So this covers the first 3 months of the service. And it's going to be a public report to give them the latest information of the Galileo performance. So according to the story, some highlights from that report is that the availability of Galileo's ranging service at the worst user location, which they gave the WUL initials, has monthly values of 100%. That sounds really good to me. And they said it's significantly above expectations, of course, where the MPL was expected to be 87%. So yeah, that's a lot better. But it's new, so you'd hope that it would be good. But this cancellation isn't completed yet, so that kind of surprised me that they were getting those kind of rates. Then the signal in space ranging accuracy shows a 95 percentile monthly accuracy, better than 1.07 meters for individual space vehicles. Then the available of the UTC time determination service was achieved with a monthly value of 100%. Now, again, they expected 87%, but this, as we were talking last week, is critical because if that time slides, so does your location, because everything's based on the time. The availability of GGTO determination, not declared as a service in this phase, was 100% in January and March, but February had a slightly lower figure of 96.44%. But that is still above the target of 80%. But I have no idea what GTTO is.
We want to come up with some.
Yeah, well, I think this is a good time to just interject random meanings for that word. It's like the geocacher guidance time operation or something like that. It lets you get to the caches faster.
Oh, there you go.
It's your FTF service.
If you could time travel and you went back in time with your current GPSR, would it ever sync to the satellites because of the time differential? See,
would there
suddenly
actually
you
be
could
satellites?
be in Europe. Oh, you don't go back that far.
Well, then you would probably sync. Though I wonder if it actually would if you go back far enough, because if the almanac is too far out of date in the satellite or in the GPSR, I don't think it's ever going to get the signal and download a current almanac.
I'll tell you, Daryl, I'm a bad geocacher. I haven't used my GPSR in probably 2 years. And I took it with me on my trip to Canada. And it took the entire trip from Tacoma to the Canadian border before it got signal and started to work. And so over 2 hours of sitting there chugging and like, come on, I know you see satellites, but
well, supposedly you can leave it in the same spot and it works better at acquiring that, because when you're moving, it's having to try to figure that out as well as to update its data. But I actually had my 60 CSX that would not work without an update because enough of the satellites had changed that you had to download the new almanac from Garmin, and there was a firmware thing that they had to do to allow for the almanac to be downloaded from newer satellites than what were there, because the old satellites had been mostly retired at that point. So that was a weird situation that I think they've now taken care of, but the older GPSRs had that problem of not recognizing the new authority to download the new almanac. And I'd have to go and look that up to be 100% positive that I'm actually saying that right. So I might have that a little bit wrong, but that's the gist of what happened.
Got me.
Okay. The next story comes from Mashable. Google's indoor V, that's Victor Papa Sierra, VPS navigation might be the next reason to buy a Tango-ready phone. At the Google I/O Developers Conference, they announced a new technology called Visual sorry about that, visual positioning system, a Tango-enabled mapping system that uses augmented reality on phones and tablets to help navigate indoors. So VPS builds on what Tango started with its indoor mapping. So the first consumer available Tango phone will be launched was already launched late last year from Lenovo, but it was rather large and clunky. Nobody wants a large and clunky phone. They proved that. Motorola proved that in the 80s.
That's true. So I was telling you guys earlier that you made me click links and you made me read articles and all that getting ready for this, and then all the guys were surprised. I was interested in some of this stuff because this indoor and being able to have indoor navigation is something that is really good for Evency that we have with, a photo-based scavenger hunt. And if you're at a trade show or a convention or something like that, the ability to pinpoint where people are, as opposed to being at, Munzie did a show for the National Wild Turkey Federation at Opryland, and that was in 2013, I think. And oh man, it was such a nightmare to have people trying to find specific locations in there. So this kind of thing is exciting for me, looking at what the future could be, because it's something that ties in with the apps that we put together, but also making that something that players are able to use and I don't know, just to be able to navigate better. I can see some really cool uses for this, and it makes me want to get one of these phones actually. So
yeah, and the new Asus Zenfone AR is coming out this year, and that's going to be smaller with the Tango. The problem with this for something like Munzie or for Evency, although probably not as much for Evency because that's still largely visual based.
Uh-huh.
This is cameras on the phone that have to be running for the service to work.
Yeah.
So it's not something that you can have in your pocket and use. You have to hold it up. But they were showing it at like a Lowe's. Okay, hold up your phone. We know what's in this Lowe's well enough that we can guide you through based on these points that the 3D cameras in the phone are able to bring up. So they're really talking about this more than anything right now as being an assistant for the visually disabled.
Oh.
Or visually impaired. So it's something that will help a lot.
I want it to be able to navigate to the store I want to go to in the mall. I can never find that.
Well, and that's a good point as well.
Yeah.
It is an indoor mapping device. Mm-hmm. You pull up the phone. It takes a couple seconds, probably at most, to acquire where you are, because it knows that location. It's already been mapped out, and it has to be mapped out.
Right.
It can't do it on its own. But near as I can tell from the bits and pieces that have been coming out of this project over the last several years, because this is like a 3-year-old project now, they are not requiring any kind of location available as a reference point. It will build that whole 3D map, that whole map of the mall, of the store, whatever, on its own. Just from the information it can collect. Now, it doesn't necessarily know where it is on the planet, but it can put you in the right spot within that map that it's created.
Okay, so it isn't tying to a GPS coordinate at all then. It's really and truly just here's a brand new map. That's
yeah,
cool.
it's navigating you within that map. And if you think about it, if you know which Lowe's store you're in and you're trying to go to that rebar or whatever, it will take you to that rebar because it knows that store and can get you to there. You don't have to know that store is in North Carolina, just that it's store number,
right,
329 or whatever that location is.
And we all need more rebar.
Yeah. But I'm sure the whole system is going to work with the GPS and with the location services, the Wi-Fi based stuff, to actually put all that stuff in the right spot. But as far as the navigation goes, once you're in and you know which store you're in, it shouldn't need anything because it is entirely visible system. But I think the next one that Astronaut had emailed would be probably more interesting to most of us, and that's that NIST is doing an indoor GPS challenge.
Yeah.
So the whole point is for people to go and build systems to make GPS, that it's not going to be the global positioning, but an augmented positioning system that works indoors. So that's more what we're talking about, where it tells where something is inside, because it's going to give you that actual location on Earth. It might not be able to guide you to the rebar, but then with other apps, it could, because this is a system that works in the background. And we're already seeing a lot of this kind of stuff with like the beacons, but this is going to be something that's more flexible, more permanent, and it's a NIST challenge. So who knows what's going to happen and if any of that stuff's really going to work when it hits the or is even going to be released. But once this stuff comes out, it's going to be free for all for people to take that information and try to build real systems from it.
I wish I had people at the ready to build things like that. Wouldn't that be interesting? So,
well, the trouble is this kind of stuff has to be built into the hardware, essentially. You can probably do it at like an OS level if the hardware exists, but you have to have the support at that level.
Yeah, because as I was reading through it, I was like, this doesn't sound like the type of thing that is like, hey, team, let's dive in and see what we can figure out. So
yeah, but it's the guys like Apple and Google who are going to take that information, especially if it becomes a real standard, that then they're going to build that into the phones, into the OS, and it's just called. So like Munzie, for instance, wouldn't have to do anything additional. It just calls for the location and it gets a better location.
Yeah, it's cool.
And think about how awesome Google Maps would be. Google Maps has so much information inside the malls, and they're doing a lot already with beacons and with the Wi-Fi locations, that it's a pretty good guide as to where a specific store is. Imagine how much better that's going to be when it just knows where it is, and you can say, hey, take me to the Lowe's at the local mall. Because, aren't all Lowe's in malls?
Yeah, sure. It should be, yeah.
Yeah. But no, realistically, take me to like, the Pac Sun or something, because, I've got a kid who wants to buy something that really is stupid.
Auntie Anne's pretzels. There you go. Those are in malls.
There you go.
And they're in airports.
Take me to the nearest fidget spinner store.
Oh, there you go. Fidget spinners.
Take
me to the next Pottery Barn.
There you go.
Well, here in Washington, we have to be directed to the nearest Starbucks.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah. I thought they were just always visible.
Well, they are. You can visually see one from the next. So.
When you step outside, yeah. There's
a couple of street corners in Seattle where they're kitty corner. There's a Starbucks across the street from a Starbucks. Really?
Okay, total aside. The Starbucks Reserve stores, right?
Yes.
The big flagship ones?
Yes.
Apparently they're doing I think it was a 5-floor Starbucks Reserve on Chicago's Miracle Mile.
Why?
Because why not?
Because they need to sell on each floor. I mean, once you're there, you're not going to want to go down 3 flights to get another cup of coffee.
Well, I'm sure that is going to be a busy enough location that it is going to need that much space. I mean, that is just an insane shopping district. I've been there on off days, and it's still just crazy. And, of course, people are spending way too much money there, which is kind of the point.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's what Starbucks wants.
Well, yeah. But I like that they actually roast in store. I like roasting coffee. I need to start doing that again.
It depends on how hot it is. You can roast in the store, too, if you sit in the sun. Sorry. Rob, thank you for the courtesy laugh. That's all I was looking for.
That's what I'm here for.
All right, let's move on to the next email from Astronaut, who sent us the press release from Spot.
Would we have this show without Astronaut sending all these emails?
Yeah,
He
he's
would.
been very, very busy. He or
He
she.
would. But this is only two this episode. We've done a lot more in some of the other
That's
shows,
true.
but
Thank you,
and
Answer.
he sent
We
us
appreciate
he
you.
sent us some more, as I recall, that I decided we had too much and I had to trim some of it out. But Spot has announced the milestone of 5,000 rescues worldwide on April 19th. Now, Spot is that rescue beacon device that we've mentioned several times before, owned by Global Star. So it's the entire family of the Spot products. And that's a 10-year period, essentially, because they launched in 2007. So 5,000 people have been rescued.
What they don't say is only 3,000 people really needed to be rescued. 2,000 yuppies got tired and wanted somebody to come pick them up.
Well, I was going to say that, they had the complaints from the rescue services early on that people were getting out and doing stuff they shouldn't be doing. So this made me wonder a bit. That's still 500 a year, so more than one a day on average.
Yeah. That's
that
impressive.
Doesn't seem like it's that much, but you think about these are the guys who probably before this went out like once a week, if that, globally. Now they're going out daily on average. So yeah, it probably is a lot more people, but how many of those people would have been out without the spots or, alarms, whatever.
Right.
But, how many of them would have gone out without these devices and not ever come back and, not been found for years?
So, Daryl, are you insinuating that people are going out doing things that they wouldn't normally do because they feel they have this Spot safety net?
Yeah, well, that's what they were saying about 5 or 6 years ago in those stories. I think we actually talked about that shortly after we talked about the first version of the InReach.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of our very first shows.
So people are doing more than they're capable of, but I've got the Spot, so it's fine. I'll take that chance.
Yeah, I think I can do it, but just in case, I have this parachute, and all too often they're pulling that cord.
And it makes a really good story to tell your friends around the water cooler Monday morning.
Yeah, providing you make it back okay. Well, and that's the problem too.
These people have.
Yeah,
we know 5,000 people have.
Yeah, well, it's a lot of these people who have pushed the button. Apparently, have just done so because they were too tired.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's the yuppie service.
Yeah, come back and tell people
that they're for.
You took a 20-mile hike and, that was one way, but then you pushed a button and they came and rescued you so you didn't have to walk 20 miles back.
Right. Oh, yeah. I didn't realize it was 20 miles each way.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that.
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
Well, I know that some of them have been like the kayakers and stuff who have gotten into precarious positions, and rather than risk hurting themselves worse, they call the rescue services, which probably, makes some sense. However, they're putting the lives of these other folks in peril, trying to get them out. So it's kind of, who knows?
Yeah. And I've heard stories up here of backcountry skiers who have, taken that chance and had to use Spot to get themselves rescued. But you know what? It's working.
It is.
It's 10 years. I didn't realize it had already been 10 years. Now, thanks, Daryl. You make me feel old. But, we have to say it's a proven technology. It works. 5,000 people, are around to tell you it works over the last 10 years. That's impressive.
Well, and the ones that to me are the most impressive are the guys who are doing the transatlantic or Pacific yacht journeys. Mm-hmm. Or sailboat journeys, really not yachts, I guess. But these are people who are in these little unpowered craft, sail powered, no connection to the world, aside from maybe a short range radio, which isn't that short, but in the middle of the ocean, who are you going to raise on the radio? So now if they hit storms or something, they have a way to, catastrophic failure of the boat, they have a way to get rescued.
Well,
and that's never really been a situation or availability before. Yeah.
Because GPS satellite coverage is very weak over the oceans.
Yeah. But it's the Iridium system, and that's where a lot of these guys have been using it, is for the races and stuff like that.
Okay.
And it does work. It's not going to be as accurate a location, but it's still within something like a quarter mile, if I recall.
Hmm.
You think about it, 10 meters versus a mile, or a quarter mile, is a big difference. But in the ocean,
Yeah.
a quarter mile is not that bad because
Like a
you
drop
have a
in the
line
ocean.
of sight.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Benjamin in the chat, I had to read it ahead of time. He says, weak, not true. EPIRB technology, I don't know what EPIRB is mandated on all SOLAS vessels. We've had personal location beacons aboard for years. This is how the populace gets in on the deal.
Yeah.
Emergency personal.
I don't remember what it stands for, but yeah, that's the locator beacons. Oops. But this is also what Galileo is supposed to be doing, is an improved satellite two-way communication. So it's actually going to have better coverage over the entire planet because it is intended for like aircraft. And I seem to remember something about the GPS system has been reconfigured, the constellations, so that you're getting better accuracy over the oceans now as well.
Okay, that's an emergency position indicating radio beacon.
Rescue beacon.
Well, it says radio. What I Googled.
Oh, okay. He's saying rescue in the chat.
Okay. So,
Safety of life at sea.
there
you go.
Thanks, Ben.
Yeah, way to go, man. Appreciate that.
I didn't know the acronym, so I figured I should spell them out rather than trying to pronounce them.
Yeah, because he's a boat captain.
Okay.
Yeah, down there on the Louisiana coast. So.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
Yeah.
So I have to ask, Ben, since you're here, is the beacons radio or satellite?
Well, even GPSR is radio.
Well, it depends on what it's trying to communicate with, though. Is it, short
No, it's
wave?
always radio.
Well, which way
are you asking whether it's terrestrial or
is it terrestrial radio looking for another radio, or is it looking to satellites to communicate?
Now, like the Spot is satellite only; it uses the Iridium system.
Right, but satellite, but relays to a land station. Okay.
Yeah, so probably the same thing.
It uses a satellite to get a location and relays that to a land station. That's what I was getting at.
Yeah. Okay. So there you go.
But the coasties come out.
Yeah, that's funny. I'm guessing a nickname.
No, that's what they're called. Yeah, the post.
They are. Yeah. Okay. There you go. So yeah.
No, the Coast Guard is a great group.
Yeah.
They don't get enough recognition.
All right, so Chris, last story for the regular show, and then we'll wrap it up and get into the patron one, where we have a whole bunch more stuff, including Dubai wants to have RoboCops.
Yeah.
Oh,
25% of their force. That's,
everyone's got to tune in for that.
Exactly. Hey, did you ever want to have you direct yourself where you're going? That's an option now with Waze voice recorder. You can put your voice in control of the directions. So you're going to have to open the app, tap on the sound and voice, and then you have the option to record a new voice. Rob, I see the gears ticking there. You could do this for all the people looking to find their way to Muncie.
I could, but the problem with this is there should have been a disclaimer at the very beginning that says, not so fast, iPhone users, don't get too excited. So that's the problem. But yes, carry on with your story, because I would love to do that. That would be so cool. I would tell people what to do with their unicorn.
Yeah, there you go. I do not want to know what you think we should do with a unicorn. You're gonna
I still got to get a Hydra.
Oh, yeah, that too.
you're going to have to record a bunch of generic phrases, like numbers, turn left in 100 feet. But after that, you're free to customize the instructions as you see fit, including unicorns. So the potential uses for, localization, pranks, nearly limitless. So, however, as it stands right now, that feature can't be shared. So if you want to show off your fancy navigation voice, you're going to need to go for a drive with your phone, and it has to be an Android.
Yeah.
For now, and because there's no word if it's even going to be ported to iOS.
Right.
So, you just don't know. But I saw this story and I'm like, this is what they did for the Nuvies on the Garmin side like 5-10 years ago, but it was a Windows app.
Right.
And I think TomTom had something similar, but it took a little bit more work. So this is something that keeps coming back around once the technology gets mature enough to do it.
And I was really excited about this until the very last line with the whole not so fast iPhone users. So I another reason for me to run out and get an Android just so I have one for cool stuff like this.
Well, especially if it will work with Tango, so it will work inside.
Ooh.
Get one of those new Asus Zenfone ARs, and then you can do Waze in the mall and freak people out.
Oh, I really like this now. This is good. Yes, I'm in.
I wonder if Waze would give you traffic reports in the malls too.
It's really busy around Nordstrom's.
Well, and you start punching that report button every time you see one of the mall cops.
Yeah. Oh, the Nintendo Switch is available again at GameStop, so there's a big huge crowd, that kind of thing. Absolutely. Fidget spinners are in.
If there's any GameStops left. They closed down I think a third of their stores.
Yeah.
Oh, did they? They're still alive around here.
Yeah. Well, I think it was February they announced they're closing down like a third of their stores, so they might not all be closed yet either.
That might be the reason for we're having a huge sale banners that I've seen on a couple of them recently. Oops.
That could be. Yeah, they have to strip down their inventory to move up. But it was insane for a while. We had every couple of miles a GameStop, it seemed.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they were getting to be as dense as Starbucks.
Gary is a funny guy in the chat saying that if I got an Android phone, I could play Wallaby. And Gary, thank you. You are correct. Finally, people with Android phones can play Wallaby. I'm very excited about that. So.
Has that gone well? Have you seen a lot of downloads?
Yeah, it's actually gone really well. So We're excited. We're getting what's fun to me is to get friend requests on Wallaby from people that I've known in Muncie for years and know that, oh yeah, well, they're an Android user because they would have started playing a long time back. So it's been pretty cool. But yeah, we just launched Wallaby on Android this past Monday. So it's been out it was out the 15th, I think was the day. Yeah. So
wow.
Yep. So
I was thinking it's longer than that now.
Yeah, we're only at 10 days. We put out the 2.0 on iOS on May 1st. So it took 2 weeks to be sure Android was ready.
Well, and then it took a little while to get everything stabilized before you started doing drops again.
Yeah. Something about, not wanting to freak everybody out and have everything crash every single time with brand new users. We wanted to go slowly into that.
Well played. Played.
We learned from some past things that we'd tried.
Yeah, and I'm still trying to figure out how to tell when the new items are coming out and how to get them.
Good news. We're working on that. I can tell you.
I figured that much.
You just have to keep the app open all the time.
Robbie and Scott and Dan and Donovan are working on that. I can tell you that much. So it's good.
Well, I was pretty sure it was a frantic pace, but API is still down, so you can't even do the Twitter thing, correct?
Right. Yeah. One of the accounts is it's gone rogue on us. So we're trying to figure out all kinds of crazy stuff.
It's gone rogue. I like that concept. Yeah. It's just randomly running around and tweeting weird things.
Yeah. Don't know what's happening.
All right. Well, thanks a lot for joining us for this one. Are you going to hang out and do the patron show with us?
Sure. Why not?
Cool. Because we do have Yeah, we got some really cool stuff. Like, we mentioned already the Dubai RoboCops. There's copyright trolls that were disbarred. We have 1Password travel mode that's going to be really cool for the international travelers. Not so much for the domestic, but I think some people are going to like that too. So a lot of good stuff coming up in that patron show, which if you are watching us live, patrons, just hang out for a little bit and we'll have that one going when you have to reset. But it'll also show up in your feed. And if you're not a patron, you might want to head over to the Patreon site every so often and check, because we do have a bunch of bonus content up there. And one of the things we mentioned earlier is our picks. We're now doing a test on those. So every week we usually have a pick for the patrons of something that's cool. Not usually geocaching related, just something cool. And I think this week it was the IKEA smart lights, which are going to be compatible with HomeKit, the Google Home, and with Alexa. So that's big news because it's a cheap smart home kind of thing.
Oh, and go to IKEA this weekend.
Yeah, well, don't do it yet because it's not compatible yet. It's not yet. It's not out yet. It's coming. So I don't recommend people go and buy the interfaces and stuff until everything's working, because we've had a few of those situations where you get stung. But in any case, that was our pick, and the patrons get that first. But with a new feature on Patreon, they only get it exclusively for like a week, and then it opens up to everyone. So we've got a bunch of content up there that's available to everyone, some that's available for just patrons, and some that's available to patrons only for a limited time, and then it opens up to everyone. So kind of cool to get a bunch of extra stuff from the GeoGearHeads.
That's right. And you know what? You're not just getting stuff there. We're giving you stuff every week. In fact, next week, we're going to do Caches Along a Route, number 2. After that, June 8th, we're doing another show on logging, because there's a lot of changes coming into logging recently. June 15th, we're talking about building lists with geocaching.com. June 23rd, we're doing road caching. This is number 12. This has been a very popular series for us.
Check the Cachemaniacs website at cachemaniacs.com for more on the GeoGearHeads, including show notes for this and all of our episodes. We love hearing from our listeners, so leave us feedback by emailing geogearheads@cachemaniacs.com or through social media. Your support helps keep the Cachemaniacs shows coming. Please consider becoming a patron through the link on our website to support the Cachemaniacs shows. GeoGearHeads is produced by Chris Sovnauer and Daryl Wanberg. This show is copyright 2017 by Daryl Wanberg. All rights reserved.
Cache with a Cachemaniac.